Hello and welcome to Become the Teapot. I'm your friendly neighbourhood Iain.
And I'm something of a Iain myself. This episode, we're revisiting Sam Raimi's 2002 film, Spider-Man.
Before swinging by the silver age of comic books for Amazing Fantasy 15, Amazing Spider-Man 39 to 40, and Amazing Spider-Man 121 to 122. There's several people in this who have been cast to perfection.
Mm-hmm.
But Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin, I love it.
Fantastic.
I love Willem Dafoe anyway.
Yeah.
I think in this he is scary, and yes, his costume looks like a rejected Power Rangers villain, but that Thanksgiving scene and those little Gollum-like monologues he's doing to the mirror and the mask and things like that, I think it really shows the depths of his insanity, his delusions, and there's real menace there.
That scene works so well, where he's talking to himself, and the way it's been shot as well and put together. If it starts off with just this voice in his head, and then it just cuts from him in the mirror and him not.
Yeah.
And he captures it so well. It's like a madman talking to himself, but then you see it's two characters, and it's the only one thing is that he's got such an expressive face. Why would you cover it with a big plastic, huge green mask?
Well, especially one that looks exactly like his own face. But yeah, I think you're right. I think they had an animatronic. I remember seeing a mask, behind the scenes thing with an animatronic mask, which was more like the comic book Green Goblin, so it had the purple hat and it was more of a fleshy thing that could move. And I think that might have been a bit more expressive. And Willem Dafoe can do a lot with his eyes when those eye shields pop open and he can project that with his eyes and still convey menace. But yeah, I think you're right. I think it is hampering the performance, especially as he's in what is quite clearly quite a rigid suit. So he's having to sort of dance around a bit jankily and and stuff like that. But I still think he manages it. I think if you got a lesser actor in that role, they wouldn't be able to convey anywhere near what he did. I mean, it is cheesy, it is over the top.
Yeah.
It's not a subtle performance, but the role doesn't call for that, so fine. You know?
No, you do need like we said, this sort of crazy man, this scientist who's gone mental. You need that, and the casting of him as the Green Goblin and as Norman Osborn, almost said Harry, works so well.
Yeah. And the other perfect casting in this is obviously J. Jonah
I know
Jameson.
who you're going to say.
J. Jonah
Simmons.
Jameson is amazing.
Perfect.
And he's only in, I didn't realise how he was only in this film for, 5-10 minutes? He's barely in it.
He's in, I think, 3 scenes.
Yeah.
And I might be being too kind.
It may only be 2. No, I think it was 3. 2 with Parker and 1 without. And he leaves his stamp on that. And I think his role got dialed up in the sequels, didn't it?
Yeah.
I just think he's amazing. I mean, I love him as an actor anyway. J.K. Simmons is great. Can't believe it took him, 15 years after this to get his Oscar for Whiplash.
Again, great film.
Yes, absolutely amazing performance. But I just can't see anyone else in that role. And I'm sure if you put the wig and the moustache on someone else, they'd be able to do it and make him look like that.
Yeah.
But because he's already done it, that is now ingrained in people's minds. That is the performance that people will remember and they will compare it against. Yeah. And he is a comic book villain in a way. He is so over the top in his hatred of Spider-Man, but he has that moment of vulnerability when he defends Peter Parker, says he doesn't know who the photographer is. That is textbook J. Jonah Jameson from the comics, and I loved it.
Yeah. Because I was trying to work this out. Is he being kind to Parker, not to tell the Goblin that it's Parker and then he'd be attacked? Or is he trying to save the paper? Because if Parker's gone, the Spider-Man pictures won't be there, so he won't sell as many copies.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of a mixed kind of thing.
I don't think it is mixed, because he is putting his own life at risk to defend Peter Parker in that moment. He is lying to the Goblin, to his face, whilst his life is under threat, to defend one of his employees. And that is what J. Jonah Jameson has done in the comics time and time again. So I think it's very much comic accurate. He's also, however, created loads of different supervillains and got people killed. So, it's inconsistent, let's say at best. But yeah. The other one I was surprised about is how much I enjoyed Uncle Ben's performance.
Yeah.
I think that's a real heart to the film, is how subtle and how real that performance feels. And he delivers one of the most iconic lines of Spider-Man lore. Mm-hmm. And he does it in a way that is entirely believable. It doesn't feel cheesy. It doesn't feel tacked on. It feels so natural within that conversation.
Yeah.
It
really does.
I was surprised by that because, he's not, it's Cliff Robertson, I think, and he's not an actor that I know much about. And he died 2011, and I haven't really seen much of his work outside of Spider-Man. So I'm impressed by it, and he does feel like a real person. I found that with the other Spider-Man uncles and aunts, they were becoming increasingly famous. So the celebrity uncle and aunt, they kept getting big name actors. They did that whole Marvel and Christopher Nolan thing where they get huge name actors around a lesser known Peter Parker.
Yeah.
And as such, they just didn't feel as believable as real human beings. Whereas this one, I genuinely believe his uncle and aunt, they're a bit old to be uncle and aunt, I'll be honest. They're more like grandparents, but...
Yeah, that always confused me when I first saw this years ago. I thought, oh, does aunt mean gran in America because she's so old? I was like, is that how it works?
I think it says that Uncle Ben is 67 at the beginning of this. So I suppose he could just be an old uncle. You know, that would have been what, if Peter was 18 at that point, so 49. And then if he's the older brother of Peter's dad, then there could be an age difference between him and Peter's dad. So it works out in theory.
Well, really, Parker's 30, so...
Yeah, that's if you dial that into it. Everyone is aged up 10 years from where they should be. But yeah, no, I really like the film. Generally speaking, it's good fun.